Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this Test Automation Day online. My name is Andy Wyatt. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer with SourceLab, and has been alluded to by both Matt and Laszlo. I'm going to give you a teaser trailer, as it were, of what the AutonomIQ platform is all about, with a bit of a live demo, and I'm actually also going to play a short video showing how AutonomIQ can be used to automate the SAP Hybris application. So without further ado, I'm just going to present just a few slides, just 7 or 8 slides at the most, just to position what the platform is all about. So I'm sure many of you, particularly if you're existing SourceLabs customers, you're going to be well aware of the fact that actually test automation can be quite difficult. And what is probably less obvious is the fact that there is a massive amount of latent test automation requirement out there in the world today. And that's because the rate of change in business applications, the rate of change of new functionality that's required in order to remain competitive or to become the best in breed, it's massive. There's a huge amount of throughput, and most organizations, and certainly most of our SourceLabs customers, have more developers than they have testers. So whenever something changes, there's always going to be that impact. And we regularly hear, well, actually, we spend as much time updating our test automation as we do on developing the applications in the first place. And there's that massive desire to actually drive down the cost of that. So the most obvious way of doing that is to make the if you like, the accessibility, the on-ramp to automation more achievable. So obviously, I'm sure those of you that are test automation engineers, you know just how hard it can be to write really good test automation. The problem is that we now have this, in many organizations, this silo, this wall between the QA people, the SDETs, and the business folks and the analysts on the other side of the wall as well. So what we're trying to do with AutonomIQ is to actually break down that wall and make the whole platform, the whole process, the whole DevOps test tool chain much more collaborative. And that's fundamentally what is behind SourceLab's platform strategy. So we're getting everybody, you see on the slide there, we're basically pulling everybody into the same room, and it's more than that. We're actually pulling everybody to the same kind of agile teams and giving them, using the technology as an enabler to do that. So we talk about what the anatomy of a test lifecycle is with a platform like AutonomIQ. So it's not just about the applications that you are yourself building that are just bespoke applications in-house. We are also seeing, certainly in the last 2 decades or so, a massive rise in the SaaS space, the ERP platforms out there, the likes of Salesforce and SAP, amongst many other notable others. And due to the need to be competitively differentiated, if you and your biggest competitor both use the same ERP platform, where's your competitive differentiator? So obviously, you're going to do things like customizing things to fit your own internal processes, your own internal strategies. And the problem with that then means that you can't then use out-of-the-box testing processes and testing scripts because they just won't work. You need to find a way to test the SaaS-based applications in a meaningful way. And actually, quite frequently, those things sit much more closely and much more naturally to the business folks, the citizen testers to which Matt alluded earlier, than they do to the technical folks. So quite regularly, when we're having the conversations with our customers, it's normally being asked either by the business folks directly, or it's being asked by the technical folks who are saying, we've been asked to do this by the business folks and we're not quite sure where to start. So there's quite a pace gathering here around the need to generate test automation for these platforms. So there's a bit of terminology on this particular slide. So how do you actually use AutonomIQ? That's the correct pronunciation, by the way, AutonomIQ, in case you were wondering. But how do you use the platform, in the context of your existing software development lifecycle? So the first thing is basically, I know it says ingest the application. That implies that we're doing some form of processing of the application in advance. What we're basically talking about here is doing like a manual understanding and appreciation of what is going to be required in order to be able to test that application. And that then feeds very naturally into understanding the intents. So we're getting on to this point to the various machine learning and artificial intelligence type of algorithms, which is inherent in step 2 there. So we've got the natural language processing engine, and I'll show you an example of that in just a moment or two. But then we've got machine vision stroke computer vision. So it's about understanding, going beyond what is in the DOM of the website to what does the site actually look like as well. And then, the GANs and the grammar. So a GAN is a generative adversarial network, which is a technique to actually, again, it's just like a smart machine learning algorithm to help understand how, the behaviors of what users do on the websites. And then it's about understanding the scenario. So for example, the title of box 3, generate, maintain, and repair the automation. So this comes back to what I said a moment ago in terms of when the applications themselves change. Quite regularly, if the developers have issued a pull request and then something fails because the test automation is not aligned with that pull request, then that means the QA engineers have got to jump in and they've got to understand why the code is broken and what you need to do to fix it. And it's because identifiers have changed, because you've got fragility in there. It might be because new objects have been added, or objects have been removed, or things have been moved around in a certain way. But the actual scenarios themselves, in high-level terms, remain the same. So the other big problem we have is with synthetic data or with test data. I've got multiple of my regular customers that I speak to on a weekly basis who say, yeah, we'd love to run against 50 and 100 devices or VMs in parallel. We just don't have the capability to produce the test data to do that. So therefore, they're testing in a much more narrow scope and kind of mitigating the risk by rotating over the browser versions and the device versions and the various resolutions that are involved in that. So if you can pull together in the same kind of intelligent platform the ability to kind of self-heal, to actually recognize that things have been moved, things have been renamed, things have been added, to kind of self-heal, but actually suggest ways in which the test automation scenarios themselves need to be updated, that's exactly what AutonomIQ does for you. So if you like, a big part of the skill for the test automation engineers, the way we do things in a more traditional way, is that understanding how your code hangs together and what the page object model looks like and what the DOM looks like on the website. And clearly that's all very technical stuff, which the technical folks understand, but the business people don't. So it's very important to provide the tools to the non-technical people so that they can remain non-technical. And then step 4 is, okay, it's all well and good doing this, in a one-off script, which is kind of what I'm going to show you today, but you can actually orchestrate this. You can actually export your test automation in either C#, Java, or Python. You can use some other form of framework, and then you can actually run this at scale from a CI engine, for example, Jenkins. So why would you do this? In addition to the benefits I've pointed out in terms of the actual citizen testers, it's actually also about the fact that you can produce the test cases far more quickly, so it can take anywhere from half a day to a full day to use a traditional method to write a new test automation script. And you can literally either upload a text document, a spreadsheet, or you can just record your test case with AutonomIQ today. And then when things changes, we've got the self-healing aspects. So that's done in minutes, as opposed to somebody diving into the code to fix it there. And then we've also got the ability, when the business logic changes and the user needs to write new code, obviously we've got the AI, the observation, the understanding of the application from an AI viewpoint to kind of say, well, actually, you don't need to dive into the test scripts to fix stuff. We can recommend where those changes need to be made. So in summary, we've got the traditional approaches, the design for test specialists. And by the way, the traditional approach is not going to go away. This is very much a supplementary tool. And it's addressing, as I said a few moments ago, the latent requirement for test automation that exists out there in the wild. It takes too long to create test automation. Quite frequently, we hear this kind of criticism being leveled, or not criticism, but the desire being leveled by the business people to say, look, we view testing as a bottleneck. We need to do something to alleviate that. And then the maintenance effort, 30 to 40% of the original effort on script maintenance is actually potentially quite a conservative estimate. And we can compare and contrast all of these things on the right-hand side with AutonomIQ, saying, okay, we've got the citizen tester, so anybody who can express their test intent can automate in natural language terms. So for those of you that are into natural language processing, most of our processing is based on the Spacey pipeline. If you want to go away, Google that, please do. The effort, to actually move from a test intent to test results, you could do that in minutes. So it reduces the overall cycle times quite dramatically. And as I've already said several times, we've got self-healing capabilities, which we do by, when the scripts are being generated, when we're understanding what the website is doing, under the covers, one of the things it's doing is storing away multiple ways of identifying those elements. So it's not just using CSS selectors and XPaths and HTML IDs and whatever else. The various objects, we're actually understanding how they can be identified such that if one of those things change, we all know XPath can be very fragile. If we've got a better way of doing it, we'll do it. And that would, so when we run next time around, the script will self-heal. So it will basically try and use its original identifier, and it will keep retrying till it finds one that works. And it's something that we're constantly refining all the time. Hopefully that made some degree of sense. So I did kind of promise that I was going to show you some NLP. So we've actually got an NLP user guide that is available on the AIQ, on the AutonomIQ website, and you can just see there some examples of the types of things that it does. So, switched, there's a better example than that. So setting the screen size, click on login, press login, things of that nature. It's just all meant to be very intuitive and very easy to use. So I mentioned that there are several ways of creating the scripts. So when you log into AutonomIQ, you basically, if you've got your own instance of this, you'll actually won't have anything in this, but these are all project tiles. And this is me, I've got my own demo project that's in here. So what I'm going to do very quickly is create a test example for you. Now, I've mentioned that you can, if you want to, upload. So I've actually got, this example here that I'm going to just recreate for you. And what this is going to be based on is the source demo website. So that's something that's out there that's up and running. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a test script which enters the username, enters the password, but I'm going to go for locked out user, click on login, and I'm going to validate that the locked out user is indeed locked out. Then I'm going to change it to standard user and click on login again, and I'm going to see what happens beyond that to make sure that I have indeed logged in and I'm on the next page along. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a test case. And I am basically, you can see, because each of these projects represents, the website under test. So that's why it already knows when I created the project, it was a source demo. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add another step to that. And the first thing I'm going to do, as I've said before, I'm going to set the screen size. And you've got the context pop-up help there. So I'm going to set the screen size to 1920 by 1024, for example. So that's important. Most websites these days are responsive websites. So the way some of the algorithms work, if you actually create a test script for a big screen where it can see everything it expects to see, that's fine. But if you suddenly run it on a smaller responsive viewport size, then things might fail. So it's important to understand the context of how you pulling these things together. So then I'm going to enter the username field, and I'm going to set that to locked out user. I'm going to enter the password field. Whoops, finger trouble. And I'm going to set that to secret source, but don't tell anybody. I am then going to click on login. It's really hard to type when you've got people watching you, but there you go. Click on login. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I should see the error message because I'm locked out. So I'm going to click. So there are multiple ways that you can verify. You can verify the text, but if you try and click on something that it can't find, it will fail. So that's just another way of verifying. So just to save me trying to type this, I'm actually going to copy this text from one screen to another. Okay, and let me just click on that. So that's the error message. And then I am going to click on the username again. Or rather, yeah, I'm going to click on the username. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to change the, okay, and then I'm going to set the data. Sorry, I'm going to enter the username. And I'm going to change it this time to standard user. Then I'm going to click on login again. I'm going to save some typing by copying it from here, copying it from there, and putting it in there. And then I'm also going to do another similar sort of thing. I'm going to paste it again, but because at this point it should be on the next screen, and I'm going to check for the word product. So, okay, all done. So that's my test scripts created. So what I'm going to do right now is run it. So you can see there, and it's populating the screenshots as I'm doing it. So it's gone to the website, it's opened the website, set the screen size, and it's doing everything you can see there on the screen. So it's entering the username, entering the password. Okay. This might fail. Oh no, it hasn't failed. So I thought I did something in the wrong order then. I'm doing things very quickly. So we've got the epic sad face because the user is locked out. Now I'm changing the username, and hopefully any second now. There we go, log in. And there we are on the next screen along. So if I click on this, I can actually view these in a bit more, in a slightly more viewable way. So if I go into full screen, I can do that. So you can see there, as part of the test, that we actually do have a downloadable, generatable HTML report. But you can see there, the object, when you're looking for something, it highlights it in green. So it says that's the object that I have located. That's particularly useful if you might have the same kind of label on the same screen. So you can see there, it's found the next one along. Everything's bounded in green. There we are back in the username, setting the username, clicking on login, and there we are on the final screen along. So that is just, I could show you a whole lot more, but I don't have time for that today. Hopefully I've given you a little bit of a teaser trailer there, but what I am going to do, I'm going to show you this is a very, very quick video of AutonomIQ. Fantastic. An error has occurred, please. Let's just try that one again. Don't you just love live demos? I thought this was a safe bet. Let me just try plan B, which is going to be, need to try and find it on my local machine now. So apologies for that. I wasn't expecting it to not work. Let me just try it one more time. Unless it's something to do with the fact that I'm now sharing my screen on a WebEx, on a Zoom meeting, sorry. No, it's not playing. So let me just try plan B just very, very quickly. Right, okay. Hopefully. So let me just, I'm just looking for one of my colleagues on the Zoom. Is that visible? Is that playing back? One of the other panelists, if you can just bring me on Slack, that'd be really good. Okay, thanks. So you can see that I'm logged into SAP Hybris. What this is doing, it's a manual use of this test case. So it's logged into SAP. It's just going through a retail journey to procure a hammer drill, and you can see there the natural language, the way that this has been put together. So that could, if you wanted to, be uploaded. So now I am logging into the AutonomIQ platform. There's the project tab, and now we can show the test case that's been created for the SAP Hybris test case, and now it's running. So I will confess that I have sped this up because you didn't probably want to sit there seeing it running in real time. So that's why the spinner is spinning quite so quickly. But you can see it's doing the same sort of thing that I just showed you in terms of the live test. It's doing the test steps. It's obviously gone to SAP. It's logged in, and this is what we've got built inside of the platform is this ability to understand and intuit the SaaS platforms that are there. So we're nearly at the end of the test case. Okay, so we're now at the checkout process. We're placing the order. So this is all very retail focused. Placing the order, thank you for the order, and that has now run correctly. And now we're just reviewing the results, just to make sure that the first few test steps have done what we expected it to do. So we've got the next step where we're basically going to, we've created this, so we're actually going to execute it in a slightly different way from the script that's been generated. So this was a Selenium script, so we're going to run it on Linux, and away it goes. That should execute again. So this is the same thing again. We're just starting the execution in a slightly different way, and it'll just spin over to that. So there you go. It's doing the same thing again. It's another reason I sped it up. We didn't want to see the same test case happening twice. But this is different because it's now executing from the script as opposed to from the where the test case was uploaded to. So there we are. We've just entered the purchase order number, clicking next, selecting the shipping information. So you might have noticed as it flew past there was like a yellow triangle. That's because there was multiple objects of the same thing that met the same selection criteria, and it's used the AI to work out which of those to select. And you could go back and review that test step just to find out, all the objects that it considered, and actually showing the one that it settled on. So the next step is uploading this into Jenkins, where it's going to be executed. So I should have chopped this bit of the video out. There we go. So, the next bit is to show you the HTML reports, sorry. So here you get the different test steps, how long it took to execute, any success messages, the URL, and obviously the screenshots and things that are there that go with it. So you've got all the reporting artifacts that you need to prove that you have done the testing or to help your debug. Now we're into Jenkins. This is the final step, the final few seconds, just to show the fact that we can directly execute the scripts inside of the AutonomIQ platform from Jenkins. And the same script will now execute again. So what I'm going to do, because I've just overrun by 5 minutes, I'll basically, this is the same test script again, but executing obviously in this instance from Jenkins. Now, hopefully you've got a raft of questions and you want to know a whole lot more about it. Please ask. We'll answer as many of those questions as we can. If we don't get to them today, we will get to them via email when we actually send out the information for the rest of the webinar.